You are right in time for our Women at the Forefront segment right here on Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Degwa. Thank you for staying with us. Now today our woman at the forefront is none other than Juliet Mongeli Mwema. And Juliet is the founder and executive director of Elevate Her. She is a sustainable human development advocate. She's a paracyclist and an inclusive women rights advocate. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Vivian.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. And how are you?
I'm doing amazing. Now, I want you to just tell us more about yourself. Tell us more about Juliet. Away from all the titles that I've mentioned, who is Juliet?
Thank you very much, Vivian, and thank you for having me. Juliet is, first of all, a mother of 3. And like you mentioned, an athlete. I love sports. I do paracycling. Paracycling where I ride the tandem, the bicycle for 2 people, where the pilot is at the front and I'm seated at the back. And I'm also a triathlete, and I love exploring nature.
Yeah.
So apart from the title, that's me.
All right.
Yeah.
And you're just being humble about this, but you've actually, you know, represented us internationally as a paracyclist.
Yes. So I represented Kenya in Belgium and the World Championships, Ostend, Belgium 2021. I also represented Kenya in Switzerland for a paracycling training camp at UCI, which is the world headquarters for cycling in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on that.
So much,
I want us to get into, you know, Elevate Her, which you founded, and you're also the executive director. But when we talk about Elevate Her, what exactly is it? Is it an initiative? Is it what is it all about?
All right, thank you for that question. Elevate Her is a grassroots women-led organization of persons with disabilities. At Elevate Her, we champion and advocate for the rights of women and girls with disabilities, as well as caregivers of children with disabilities. Like you mentioned, I am the founder and executive director, and myself, I'm visually impaired. That means I'm a woman with disabilities. So we do matters empowerment, specifically to women and girls with disabilities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there a particular defining moment for you that made you decide to start this organization?
Yes, Vivian, there was 2 instances.
Yeah.
So the first one, like I mentioned, being the first paracyclist to represent Kenya, I had to navigate several barriers and challenges on my own, not knowing specifically like what to do or not having a blueprint. And I felt like being alone in a male-dominated sport, I felt like if I had a better support system or conducive and a better environment, I'd have done way better. So that is the first instance. The second instance is a legal issue I once had in the past, where I really had a lot of challenges accessing justice, right from the reporting mechanism to accessing legal aid services, to going to court, which I eventually had a favorable judgment. So because of these 2 experiences, I decided to form a place where women and girls with disabilities can consider like a safe space for them, and where, like I said, we will continue championing for the rights of women and girls with disabilities, and where they can fully express themselves and eventually exercise agency and autonomy over every aspect of their life.
Okay. So how long has Elevate Her been in existence, and maybe how many women and girls are you working with at the moment?
Thank you for that. Elevate Her has been in existence from 2019. And as of March this year, we had reached over 2,550 girls and counting. And we look forward to impacting and touching many, many more lives. And like myself, I'd like to say, I would wish to hear many more stories of impact and success stories.
You know, just from your story on what made you decide to begin this organization, you had faced several barriers, you know, on your way. Maybe also just as you know, with the women that you work with, which are 2,000 plus, what are some of the challenges that you may point out that they are facing that maybe some of us may not be aware of? Yeah.
All right, thank you, Vivian, for that question. Some of the challenges that women and girls with disabilities face on a day-to-day basis. Let me begin by saying that we work with women and girls with disabilities from the urban informal settlements. So there they face double marginalization, the aspect of poverty the aspect of living with disability in an urban informal settlement. So what that means is basic accessibility. Picture a girl on a wheelchair just trying to navigate the streets of an informal settlement. The challenge of communication barrier, a girl who is deaf or hard of hearing, the lack of a sign language interpreter right in the community. Access to education, inclusive education, because in our work at Elevator, many times we will hear either parents, caregivers, or the society asking you what is the benefit of educating a girl with disability. So that basically means is that they are excluded from accessing inclusive education. So it's in all aspects of life, be it accessibility, education, access to legal services. Like, for example, reporting mechanism. Last year during one of our free legal aid clinics, one of the officers we were working with expressed to us that they lack sign language interpreters at the station. So what this means is when a girl who is hard of hearing comes to report, there's right there a challenge of communication. And of course we were able to come in and support, but that on its own is a challenge when it comes to accessing of justice. And also another challenge is the fact that they don't know, for example, when their rights are violated. So you'll find that there are a lot of rights violation going on. So because of the lack of awareness, they're not able also to report. So those are some of the challenges among many.
So clearly awareness needs to be done more on matters, you know, with the women and girls living with disability altogether. And, still on the same, research shows that women and girls with disabilities face higher risks when it comes to matters, abuse and violence. Would you say that this is given enough attention? And, you've just talked about matters reporting, even when you're going to report a case at the police station, sometimes for a woman who is, deaf or cannot speak, and they lack an interpreter, sign language interpreter, it can be very difficult for them. So do you feel like this is something that is also not given enough attention?
So Vivian, yes, I think in my opinion, it's not given much attention. Just think about it this way. We're currently talking about femicide, right? Have you ever heard of data or statistics about women and girls with disabilities? They're hardly mentioned. That does not mean they're not happening. It means they're happening. They're either not being reported or not being given attention. 2 years back, I remember there's a deaf girl who told me that she underwent some form of violation and she didn't know how to report it. And when she eventually did, it was just dismissed. So I feel, in my opinion, they are not being given attention. And like I mentioned, especially in the issue of femicide, the whole aspect of disability is rarely mentioned, if at all it is mentioned.
So how, that is quite sad. So how do we meaningfully, and by we I mean altogether, even the justice system, how do we meaningfully just safeguard and protect persons living with disability in that line?
So first of all, that starts in the community. Because we all come from communities, all of us. The community needs to start to protect and safeguard these women, but by realizing that, number one, disability rights are human rights. That I, as a woman with disability, enjoy the same rights as a person, quote unquote, without a disability. So the community needs to safeguard our rights. The community needs to support us when we go to report cases of violation, because often, I don't know if you've heard, you'll often hear about kangaroo courts in the community, where now, because it is a woman or a girl with disability, the community sort of feels this is not a case or a point that needs to go forward with reporting. So I feel like by the community supporting us is allowing us to report when violation occurs, and the justice system being inclusive and supportive. By inclusive and supportive, I mean, for example, when a case is reported, like the stations, the officers are able to support us by giving us the right support we need, from a sign language interpreter to alternative communication, and all the way, receiving support all the way to the courts.
So it needs to be an all-round coming together, you know, from the community and you know, everyone else involved. And just from saying that, this has come to mind, you know, when you talk about the community, I'm sure we have all heard of cases whereby, you know, a child with disability maybe is found having been locked away from, you know, everyone else. You know, this family does not want people to know they have a child who has this disability or another. How do we address this? And would you say this stems from stigma? Yeah.
So thank you very much, Vivian, for that. Yes. Part of it stems from stigma. And when you say stigma, what do you mean? For example, one of our caregivers was telling us that her child who has a severe disability was being prevented from playing with other children in the compound that they live, with the myth or misconception that disability is contagious. Disability was as a result of a curse or many other misconceptions. So that on its own forms stigma to this child and to this caregiver. So that this now will lead to this caregiver isolating this child and keeping this child away. And in the real sense, the child has the right to play, has a right to association, and also has a right to access education. So yes, I feel like children deserve not to be isolated, definitely. They deserve the right to play, to associate, to interact with others, and of course to access inclusive education.
And how do we change the story, matters stigma?
How we change the story is that by first creating awareness on disability rights. Like I mentioned, disability rights are human rights. Me having a disability does not mean that I do not enjoy the same right as my counterpart who doesn't have a disability. So a lot of creation of awareness from the community level, from creating awareness in schools. What I love about schools is we often hear about integrated schools or special schools. But when you think about it, Vivian, there's no special world after special school. So we need to teach our children right from the school, primary school.
There's no special world after the special school. Because after schooling, you know, in this place where it's just for the special students, when they come to the outside world, there's no special world. Kindly talk more about that.
So I'm not, just for clarity, I support special schools, but my point is let us also teach our children right from the lowest level of education about disability, about how to handle and associate with a person with disability, so that they grow up knowing that there's disability. One of my colleagues in campus really shocked me by telling me that the first time he was interacting with disabilities when he met me. And he says he feels like if he'd have interacted with disability before, his attitude and perception would have really been different. So creating awareness from schools to churches to the community will create a whole lot of change, and also to the media. Using platforms such as this, creating awareness about disability and how our rights are just the same as people without disability. And disability is not contagious.
It is not contagious.
It's not contagious.
I like that. I like that. And you know, even speaking about the fact that, you know, there's no special place out here. You can never say that this is the special place for this person because she has this disability or another. Just, I want us to get into speaking about inclusion altogether, because I can only imagine how that may look like for someone that has disability, specifically at the workplaces. How would inclusion look like, or how would you wish it looked like?
Thank you so much for that question. I really love that because the legal issue I talked about came about from the workplace. So inclusion at the workplace looks like accessible infrastructure. A person using a wheelchair is able to access the building independently. A person who's low vision or visually impaired is able to move around the building independently and without barriers or challenges. It also means that an employer provides reasonable accommodation for an employee with disability. Now, reasonable accommodation depends from person to person. For example, myself, the reasonable accommodation I received is I will receive, for example, a laptop that has a screen reading software that will enable me to work and work independently. It will mean that a deaf person is able to receive sign language interpretation in the workplace. It will mean also a visually impaired person is able to receive information in alternative formats. Reasonable accommodation in some workplaces might mean that, for example, an employee gets to leave work early.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, Vivian, a person on a wheelchair is not able to kungangania matatu with a person without disability.
Allow me to cut you short a bit. We'll get back to that conversation. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a bit.
Okay.
Thank you for staying with us. Before we took that break, Juliet was just letting us in on what inclusion looks like, specifically when you talk about inclusion for persons with disabilities in the workspaces. So, Juliet, if you may just continue elaborating that.
So thank you, Vivian. Like I was saying, inclusion basically means an employer providing reasonable accommodation for an employee with disability, for this employee to perform to their best, without having to navigate so many barriers in the workplace. So like I mentioned, an employee with wheelchair, using a wheelchair, will, for example, have a ramp so that they're able to navigate comfortably. An employee who is visually impaired will receive information in alternative formats, such as Braille, screen reading softwares in the laptop, and a deaf or a hard of hearing employee will receive sign language interpretation. So that's inclusion at the workplace. And in some cases, you'll find some employers are gracious enough to at least let you leave work early so that you're able to navigate the whole challenges of getting home. So like I mentioned, reasonable accommodation will be different in different contexts. Okay. Yes.
I like that. It's reasonable accommodation, not just accommodation, but a reasonable one.
A reasonable
that is actually it's specifically for that person.
Yes.
I like that. When we talk about caregivers, because these are a group of people that we cannot leave out of this conversation, why is it so important for us to have that group in the conversation?
Wow, thank you so much, Vivian, for that question. Now, caregivers of children with disabilities often undergo probably the same challenges as their children with disabilities, right from stigma of having a child with disability, being discriminated against, again on the basis of the disability of their child, isolation and marginalization. So they undergo compounding challenges because most of them will tell you, for example, Vivian, one told us she had to resign from her work to take care of her child. She already has the burden of unpaid care work taking care of this child. And I must say that caregivers of children with disabilities undergo a lot of challenges. So why it is important to factor them in is because they are the sole and primary caregivers of these children. They best understand the needs of these children, and they need like a lot of support, right from psychosocial support, economic empowerment to enable them take care of these children and provide every need that this child might need on a day-to-day living.
Let's get to talk matters policies right now. Do you feel we have enough policies in place as a country to ensure that you are catered for as a person with disability? And you know, if there are any gaps in there, what gaps are there that you feel should be looked into?
Wow. So I feel like Kenya is very blessed with policies and acts, especially for persons with disabilities. I'm excited about the recently enacted Disability Act of 2025. We are still waiting for the guidelines, standards and regulations. So I feel like, yes, we have the laws and the policies in place. And even I feel like for me, the challenge is basically implementation. Because we are very blessed right from the Disability Act, the disability policies and other laws that protect us. So I feel like just the major gap is in implementation. And I know it's work in progress. I know we've seen a lot of changes in the last years. We've received a lot of support and goodwill from the policymakers, from the CSOs all around, even the media houses. So what I look forward to is an increase in implementation, goodwill towards the development of guidelines and standards to the new, towards the new Disability Act. So yeah, I feel like the policies are in place. We have guidelines that support and protect us. The gap is in protection. I mean, implementation, sorry.
Implementation.
Yes.
Implementation, rather.
Yes.
That's the only place where we have the gap. Just starting to implement because we have the right policies already in place.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Now, I want us to talk about participation as well, because most times, more often than not, we get that, you know, persons with disability sometimes are not really included or allowed to participate in one way or another. Sometimes even in matters concerning themselves, we have other people going to speak for them. So when we talk about participation, how would you like that to be addressed?
For me, participation is basically bringing us to the table. Don't talk on behalf of persons with disabilities. Don't make decisions on behalf of persons with disabilities. Do not assume that one knows the needs or the challenges of a person with disability. For me, it looks like bringing a person with disability to the table. Let him or her express their challenges. Let them give you their recommendation, so that now we're not speaking on behalf of. We have them right at the table, so that if we are part of the change, tomorrow we will not stand up and say we were not included. So inclusion basically means involving us right at the negotiating tables all the way to implementation.
I'm sure with your work on Elevate Her, you have gotten to witness different shifts, and I believe some are positive shifts. Would you mind sharing with us maybe a story or two of the shifts that you've gotten to witness?
Wow, so thank you. So I'll begin by saying that at Elevate Her, our work towards inclusive justice, we offer, first of all, a lot of free legal aid clinics, where we bring legal service providers together to offer these services to our project participants for free. Right from magistrates, we'll bring paralegals, we'll bring all legal service providers. So part of the stories of impact we've seen is when there's a lady called Helen who was sharing that she didn't know about a certain right towards legal guardianship of her child. And she said after attending our legal aid clinic last year in September, she was able to follow the legal pathways provided and received the proper documentation she needed for like a guardianship of her child. And that to me was a story of impact. I also loved when one of our ladies who is in the female basketball team, the national team, during one of our commemoration days of menstrual hygiene, and she stood up and said, you know what, I just have a physical disability and my womanhood is not disabled. So for me, what that did to me is, number one, she has agency to speak for herself. She has autonomy. And you know, she's telling you, you know, it's only my body that is physically handicapped, but my womanhood is not disabled. Like I mentioned before, we want to see a world where a woman can speak up for herself. She can claim her right. So for me, that right there was a story of success.
And that's a beautiful story.
Beautiful story,
you know, and it also just speaks more to the term, I don't know if I should call it a term or a line, that disability is not inability. And you know, you are living proof, because it did not deter you from being the person that you are right now. It did not deter you from pursuing your dreams, pursuing your goals, you know, becoming a mother and all of that. So for someone who may be watching us right now, who has a child who's disabled in one way or another, and they are maybe discouraged, wondering, will my child amount to anything, you know, in this world, what would be your word to them? I want you to speak life into that child or lady or man or parent who's looking after a disabled child.
Thank you, Vivian. The reason I'm very happy with what you said is sometimes I usually wonder, my parents passed on, and when my mom passed on, she didn't know that I had a disability. She just knew I had a vision challenge. So she didn't have the opportunity of even someone talking to her. So for me, what I'd say to this caregiver or a parent or guardian of a child with disability is that your child is a child like any other child, and as long as this child receives the necessary environment, accessibility and the support, she will become whatever she dreams of. And I usually love finishing it by, or ending it by saying, I am living example that having a disability is not a barrier or a sentence to your life. Yes, it will take us sometimes twice as much to get half as far, but the important thing is to just keep going. It's not easy, it's going to be tough, but the important thing, don't give up. One lady told us, she's on a wheelchair, she told us, for her, her motto is, life is like a bicycle. For you to maintain the balance, you need to keep going. So this caregiver, just keep going and don't give up on this child. Yeah, you're the #1 support system to this child. Keep going.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Maybe what are some of the biggest needs that you see on ground that maybe for someone who's watching and may want to come on board and help in one way or the other, if you can just point out some needs?
So there are several needs when it comes to persons with disabilities, but in the context of inclusive justice, part of the needs we've seen is a lot, we've seen project participants who do not know, like I mentioned, about rights and rights awareness and violation. So we've partnered with big organizations when it comes to creating awareness on the rights of women and girls with disabilities. So one of the needs is lack of awareness that needs to a lot of rights awareness creation. We've also seen needs where when it comes to inclusive education, like I mentioned, most of our participants are not educated. So we'd love to receive support where we see children with disabilities receiving inclusive education like their counterparts, receiving support, like for example assistive devices, from wheelchairs to white cane. You saw me with a white cane. Yeah, tomorrow is World Assistive Technology Day. So just providing assistive tech from white canes to wheelchairs to hearing aids to those who are hard of hearing. Yeah. Majorly assistive devices remain to be a great challenge and need in the community we serve.
What impact has Elevate Her achieved all together that you are really proud of, that you sit back sometimes and you look at, you know, from the time when you decided I want to start this for, you know, people with disabilities, when you just sit back and look at some of these achievements, what are you mostly grateful for?
Wow, there's so many, but the one that comes to mind immediately, like I mentioned, we do a lot of free legal aid clinics. So last year, I bumped into one of the ladies we empower. And I remember she said in Swahili, and she said, I learned a lot during the legal aid clinic, and I know my rights. And I know once I enter a contract with a person or an organization, it needs to be in writing. And I now know the reporting pathways I should follow when my rights are violated. That to me was impact, because empowerment from legal literacy to education to social, for me, when you hear that, not during our activities or program implementation, to me that was success, because for me success is what remains after the project implementation is done. So I was like, I'm praying that there are many more like you in the community. And she told us before her rights were violated, because number one, she didn't know that they were being violated. And she said that I now know when it's violated where to go, what to do, and who to reach out to give me help when I'm not receiving the help I need. And that one story alone, you know, it gives you strength to keep going. And I know her voice will echo in the community. So she now became our agent of social transformation.
Amazing, amazing. And I you know, from that story that you've highlighted, I can imagine that there are very many other persons with disability whose rights get violated. And you know, it's very sad and unfortunate to know that, you know, from what you just mentioned, the lady didn't even know that her rights are being violated in the first place. So there's clearly a gap when it comes to awareness that needs to be done, you know, on matters, the rights that persons with disabilities have. But even with that, for maybe if someone's rights are violated for a person with disability, just where should they start? For someone who's not, you know, fortunate enough to be part of Elevate Her, and maybe they have no idea where they should start, where should they start?
Thank you so much, Vivian, for that question. Now, during the legal aid clinics, our legal professionals usually give the guidelines. Like, for example, if, a defilement has occurred, which is the first reporting station you should go to. So depending on the type of right that has been violated, we have like our police stations, which we have worked with for like 2 years. And I remember one instance where we were working with a certain OCS, and he joked and said, I am now an agent of disability right in the community. And he told us that once a person with disability comes to report, they are given priority, and they're given, again, reasonable accommodation at the station. And I remember him saying that, yes, we don't have sign language interpreters, but we can always reach out to you. So they can always be keen at the station where they can be guided on what are the pathways that they can follow. Because we work closely with the government just to ensure support is issued to persons with disabilities when they come to report. We've also worked with hospitals just to create awareness on, for example, when they come to report in cases of, again, defilement. For example, us offering them sign language interpreter support and just making them aware of the support and how we can partner and collaborate in offering guidance to this person.
So they should not be afraid to go forth and maybe report a violation, wondering whether they will be accommodated. There's proper channels.
There are proper channels to follow. And I thank God for the partnership we've had with the government, because once we train them their thing, we're able to offer support and referral pathways. For example, if one facility is not able to offer a certain support, they're able to refer and link this participant to the next facility.
I'm sure many would love to know how they can join Elevator just to be able to be part of this empowerment program. So how can one go about joining you guys?
Thank you. So our website is www.elevator.or.ke. And on our website, we've shared all our social media platforms. So you can reach us through our contacts where we've shared all our contacts, our social medias, and we are always ready to receive support and partnership requests.
And for the persons with disability, they're also open to join you?
Definitely, they can join us on the website. There's a place where you can join us and become part of the amazing work we do in the community.
That is amazing to know. What gives you hope as we wind up? What gives you hope for the future of persons with disability in Kenya?
Especially in the context of justice, Vivian, like I mentioned, through my experience where I received favorable judgment that was later on used in landmark cases in Kenya, what gives me hope is if I could make it, I believe any other person can make it. And I like to say that I stand as a light, shining the pathway and telling someone, if I did it, you can also do it. And I'm also very happy to see my case being referenced and cited in other cases. What gives me hope is the challenges and obstacles I went through, I made it. And I believe with the support we offer, every other person can also make it.
And for, I love your story because it is very inspiring. From, with the work that you're doing with Elevator, with the work that you're also doing just all together for persons with disability, as well as you being sporty and going for it. So for someone who's also, has a disability and knows that this is where my talent is at, I am very sporty, but they feel like their disability would not enable them to go for it. I think you are also the right person to speak to them, letting them know that it is possible. There are Paralympics.
Yes, it is so possible. There are different sports for, I forgot to mention that we use parasports as a tool of advocacy for gender and disability inclusion, where we do a lot of paracycling, paratriathlon. We do a lot of work in sports. And in sports, that's a place for like unwinding, it's therapeutic. And I've seen sports taking people to the highest levels of their life, being a great source of economic empowerment. So yes, from sports to all aspects of empowerment, and I welcome everyone, any person with disability who wants to pursue any form of sports. We offer support. We try, when we're not able to provide the, for example, assistive device they need for sports, we do referrals to government agencies and to other organizations that offer this support. And allow me to mention we've received great support from Oxfam during our program implementation. They have been amazing support in all aspects of our women empowerment programs. And it's thanks to partners like those that our work continues to inspire and touch many lives.
All right. In less than a minute, your parting shot.
My parting shot is, let me borrow from my friends. Life is like a bicycle. For you to maintain the balance, you need to keep going. So to every caregiver of a child with disability, to every woman and girl, and generally to any person with disability, for us to maintain the balance, let us keep going.
I love that.
Yeah.
And we'll leave it at that. Thank you so very much, Juliet, for gracing our show this morning. That was Juliet Mongeli Mwema, who is the founder and executive director, Elevate Her. She's mentioned where to find her if you want to just join them in the work that they are doing in for grassroots levels. You can just reach out to them and join them. This is where we end this.